just over a week ago, lotto fever was everywhere. I was picking up groceries, and I believe for the first time, the checkout lines were practically open, while the customer service line was packed. People were buying up tickets to have a chance at winning that huge pot. Reporters were interviewing different people buying up tickets about their chances and plans for winning. The psychology of playing the lotto is its own episode, but it really drove home to me how many people want to be financially independent. This dream of working for some bigger purpose or for our own satisfaction instead of taking or keeping a job to just pay the bills is something many of us share. While there are definitely circumstances which can stop us, there are many, many couples and families out there who could become financially independent. Not saying they have perfect circumstances, but they have an opportunity to make it. And that's our focus today. We have Todd Tressider, founder of Financial Mentor, to help us out. He'll share how you can gain a deeper understanding behind the headline-grabbing noise out there. In this episode, we'll also get into how you can work together as a couple to become financially independent, why so many budgets fail, and he'll dispel some of the myths and misconceptions that can harm your finances. And the best part is that your chances of becoming financially independent is so much better than with the lotto. I hope you enjoy. Todd is not your usual personal finance writer. Many have documented their journey either starting when they're heavily in debt or when they've decided to begin building their own wealth. Todd, though, was financially independent when he began writing. He was able to retire at 35 because he followed the principles and advice that he gives on Financial Mentor. When you chat with him, it's apparent that he's knowledgeable and thoughtful. He comes with the technical expertise, degree in economics, hedge fund investment manager, but when he began his work guiding others to financial independence, he saw firsthand that he had to adjust a few things with his approach if he wanted to help clients.
So, I came into this with the financial expertise, and that's what brought me where I was. I didn't understand the personal skills I brought to the equation until I started coaching others on the same subject and trying to help people achieve the same results. I started out with the same false beliefs everybody else has, which is, if you just show somebody how to do it, they'll do it. And yeah, it doesn't work that way. People aren't computers, and you don't just program them given certain skills and everything. There's a personal aspect to wealth building that's every bit as important, if not more important, than the financial or technical side. And so that was the real learning for me, was developing all the skills on the personal side to coach people to consistent success. And then that's ultimately what I integrated into that 7 Steps to 7 Figures program. Was each layer has, as I figured out through coaching people real time to help them get the results, I figured out, well, here's the personal part of this layer, here's the financial part. And I just started breaking it down into these segments so people can learn the pieces they need to learn.
We've discussed on this podcast how vital it is for couples to be on the same page with their finances. Todd mentioned how one wife spent money as fast as her husband was making it. She had no desire to change. She was buying stuff even though they had more than enough. The end result? The two got a divorce. The good news for you is that it's possible to work things out. In fact, with some deliberate, honest, and open communication, the two of you can craft a plan together.
More often what I experience, though, is not fundamentally different goals, because everybody wants security, everybody wants freedom. Mm-hmm. But what happens is people bring different levels of awareness. And so what I have been able to do sometimes with couples is work with the couple and act as kind of a third party and bring communication. And because I do work with a variety of people at different levels of awareness, I can help them find the common ground. I can help integrate the two so that they can see that they actually do want the same things. They might be using different language. They might be prioritizing slightly different. They might be bringing different skills. Just trying to find that common ground and break the impasse.
It's not as easy as it sounds. Besides having long-term goals together, you probably have some more immediate and personal goals as well. You have to find out what works best for you, and that can be difficult.
And what you find is there's conflicts. I mean, this is natural, right? It's not just because the couple's in conflict. There's conflicting goals for scarce resources like money and time, right? Because that's all you're ever doing is allocating your money and time, right?
Yeah.
Those are your scarce resources. And so there's naturally conflicts. Like you might have, let's use a Starbucks coffee as an example, okay? You have a goal of getting out of the house because, I don't know, I guess you work from home, right, Elle?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, I do.
so you have this goal of getting out of the house occasionally because you feel cooped up and you just want to get down to Starbucks and you can be amazingly productive over a $5 cup of coffee for 2 hours, right? Because it just gets you in a new environment. So you have a goal of getting out of the house, but you also have a financial freedom goal. And let's face it, it was 50 cents worth of coffee for a $5 cup of coffee. So it's not the highest and best value of the money, but the productivity that results from it might be the highest and best value, right?
Yeah.
And so you can go on and on with like layering in the goals. You might have a health goal. So consuming coffee is taking you towards your health goals and on and on and on. And you play these out and at some point you come to terms with it. So like I had a client where an expensive gym membership absolutely fit her goals and absolutely was highest and best value for her money. She did a lot of networking there. It allowed her to maintain her health goals. In net, it put money in her pocket through the networking activities she did at the gym. And it worked for her, right? And so why remove it? Another client, gym membership was a complete waste of time. So it's different for every person. There's not a right, wrong answer, but there's a right, wrong answer for you as a couple. And that's the key is it's not that there's one right way to do this, but there's going to be one right way for that couple. And that's the job of the coach is to help them find that path that's going to work for them. So I, as the coach, I hold that higher perspective, if you will, the kind of the 30,000 foot. And then they're the ones down there in the forest hacking away at the trees, taking the action and making things happen. But the principles are always the same. The principles are inviolable. They're built in the math of the way money compounds. They're built in how investing works. There's certain principles that are inviolable, but the actual implementation varies dramatically from one couple to another.
You might be thinking that part of this path towards financial independence requires keeping a budget, specifically a very strict budget, no extra spending, and no fun. Then you might appreciate Todd's approach, which looks less at the numbers and more about awareness and understanding the value of what you're spending.
Yeah, where I would start is with the personal objectives, because if you really are clear on what you want, budgeting happens automatically. Like I don't even teach budgeting as an example. I teach a thing I call the no budget budget, which is where I have a client track all their expenses. So this is an awareness problem because people are smart. If they understand how the puzzle pieces fit together, they will act accordingly. And so you just have to help them understand. And so like the no budget budget is basically you track every dime that goes through your pocket, every penny that goes through your pocket, both on the income and the expense side. And then you take it back together as a couple. You sit down, hopefully over a nice bottle of wine, and you make this fun. And every week you go through all the expenses and you ask two questions. One is this taking me toward my goals or away from my goals? And the wording on this is exact, okay? Is this taking me toward my goals or away from my goals? And the second one is this getting us the highest and best value for our money? Now, notice nowhere in there did I say, can we live without it? Can we substitute something else? Can we be cheaper? Okay, those are all going away from goals. They're all discipline goals, and nobody wants to be disciplined. That's why budgets fail, is because budgets are like a diet. They're enforcing you to do something you don't want to do. The key is getting your awareness to a point that you want it. When you want it, it requires no discipline because you're just going toward what you want. And so if you look at those two questions carefully, they're both going toward questions. Let me repeat them again so people can follow now that I've given them a context. Is this taking me toward my goals or away from my goals? Is this getting me the highest and best value for my money? Notice that those are both going toward statements. They're positive statements. There's nothing discipline about that. They're just helping you increase your awareness. So if you go through every expenditure, everything you're spending, you start asking that, what that does is that creates some really interesting conversations between the couple around what is highest and best value to them. What are their goals?
And this awareness goes beyond budgets. When we had Roger Whitney on the show, he mentioned how we all bring to the table strengths and weaknesses. Being cognizant of them can allow us to shore them up in some way. Todd's observed how our strengths can actually be a weakness if we leave them unchecked.
Yeah, it's all personal. Every person's going to be different. So like in the 7 Steps to 7 Figures courses, I tell people they start where they want to because everybody has a different hole. Like what you're good at necessarily defines what you're not good at. Like, for example, use myself as an example. I'm a really good strategist. That's what makes me a good coach, right? I'm a very good strategist, very good listener, very good communicator. That gives me great power as a coach. What I am not as great at is implementing. I'm probably on a 1 to 10 scale. I would consider myself really high on the strategy and communication. On the implementation, I'd give myself maybe a 6, maybe a 7 on a generous day. And it's only because I'm very disciplined and persistent that I manage to pull it off. But the very things that make me really good at the one thing make me not so good at others. So I've seen some people that are brilliant implementers, but they don't have the strategy and the persistence like I do. They just go, go, go. And then the next bright, shiny object comes and they go, 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 go. And then they jump over here and they jump over there. They're brilliant implementers. But boy, they need somebody like me to keep things on track, Mm-hmm. And so we all bring different gifts to the equation. And by definition, those gifts also become our weaknesses. There's no such thing as good or bad in any of it. It's just understanding how that all interplays.
And that's where an objective third party can help you two out. Another benefit with seeking a financial expert is that they can provide clarification. There is a ton of information out there about finances, and so many people claim to have the secrets of the wealthy. It's easy and understandable to feel overwhelmed and confused on what steps you should take with your money. Becoming more knowledgeable protects you from harmful yet common misconceptions.
As I try to make these distinctions between what I call first level understanding and second level understanding. I think where we end up is it's not so much myths, but what we'll call simplistic half-truths that become that first level of understanding or that conventional wisdom. So, my book, How Much Money Do I Need to Retire? That book is all built around the myth of the number, the magic number, right? Like, remember the ING commercials where everybody had the red number stamped on their head and they're walking around and when they hit the number, they're retired. That's a myth, right? There's no such thing as a magic number because that number is just a mathematical projection of assumptions. And when you really understand what those assumptions are, there's essentially no chance that those assumptions are going to be valid. And so how you go about retirement planning is completely different from how conventional wisdom teaches it and how it's practiced in most financial advisor offices. So, that whole book was written based on that myth.
I've read How Much Do You Need to Retire, and I really enjoyed it. I think it highlighted Todd's strength, his curiosity. He goes over the fundamentals so you know what to shoot for, but he also looks at the how and the why as well. I'll give you an example of his thoroughness. Let's talk about another misunderstanding people have: average investment returns. I've seen people write about it, and it ranges anywhere from 7 to 12 a year. On one hand, I see why presenting it this way could encourage more people to invest. After all, if they believe they're getting a certain return, it feels safer. But those numbers don't reflect how the market actually works. As you've probably seen either with the news or checking your own portfolios, it can fluctuate. For people who rely on average returns as their anchor, they can easily get discouraged or scared enough to take their money out when the market dips. And that can be a huge blow to their financial plans. Todd's someone who prefers to look at the details to capture a clearer picture of what really happens.
There's no such thing as an average return. It's a statistical fiction. The vast bulk of the returns never occur anywhere near the average. And there's data on it. Something like, again, I don't want to misquote the data because it's not on the top of my head, but it's something like if you take all the years returns and you plot them and you say how many are between plus 16 and minus 16% in a year, it's only about half of them. The other half are outside that range, which means they're larger than a plus 16 year or worse than a minus 16% year. And so what it tells you is the average is the exception, that volatility is the rule.
Yeah.
And so when you start advocating this idea of an average return, it puts a myth in people's head, going back to this idea of myths, that they're going to get this inexorable compounding at some average number and that they can rely on that. No, it's going to jump up and down all over the place. If you actually look at market returns in history, you'll see that there's these, kind of 10 to 15 year periods, and they vary. It could be 7 years, it could be 20 years, but kind of these 10 to 15 year periods where the market more or less goes sideways. It'll be up a lot, down a lot. So if you look at from 2000 to current, we're recording this at the end of 2015. If you look from 2000 to current, we're sitting on a 15-year period that's more or less a flat spot. It went up a bunch, down a bunch, a couple different times. And net, the compound return is pretty minimal. It's pretty much a flat spot for 15 years. That comes on the back of a 20-year fantastic return that just looks like climbing a ladder on the chart, that went from like 1980 to 2000 before the top occurred. Mm-hmm. And that's the way the markets work. They go through fits and spurts of increasing valuations, right? There's a general rise in market valuations where it looks like the market's just climbing a ladder and people get these amazing returns, followed by these long periods of almost no return when you net it all out. But there's a lot of volatility along the way. And that's the nature of the beast. That's the way it works.
While investing is a smart move if you want to be financially independent, it's even smarter when you understand why you're investing in a certain way. But as deep and as detailed as finances can be, Todd brought it back to the fundamentals.
The financial stuff that actually works is pretty straightforward. The reason, what you have to look at is the personal obstacles that keep you from walking the talk, from implementing it.
Special thanks to Todd for being a part of this podcast. If you want to find out more, please check out financialmentor.com. There are plenty of resources, including in-depth articles, podcasts, his books, and courses to help you to design your wealth plan for financial freedom. Now, we're still continuing our theme of big goals and how you can achieve them. So please join us next week when Joanna and Johnny from Our Freaking Budget discusses the logistics and adventures of making big moves. They've had some huge changes, and if you've been following them already, you know they've had quite a year. They'll also compare notes on how it was to move as a couple and moving as a family with 2 kids. If you don't want to miss out on that, make sure you're subscribed to the podcast. It's free and easy. We're on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, TuneIn, and more. You can also grab the feed off our site so you can listen to the show from whatever podcast service app you prefer. And if you'd like to support the podcast, please check out couplemoneypodcast.com/support. I hope you have a wonderful week and take care.